when you talk about your connection with other people and how that is a, I guess, either innate or learnt skill in a photographer's toolkit. Um, where where does today's digitized society fit into that? Do you think that, kind of the Twitters, the Instagram, social medias, the democratization of photography generally doesn't help that type of approach, that real kind of in-depth, emotion and connection with other people, that type of approach in photography?
I don't know. That's like a very loaded question because you're assuming that I think I know what I'm doing.
I think
Like,
most
oh,
people
this is
watching
a
this would think you
like
know what you're doing.
these are my 5 techniques of how to convince someone to do anything. Okay. No. Uh I think it's like this, like like when you go to do the act of photographing someone, it's just like it's already totally bizarre, right? Like what you're doing, it's like just weird. It's not. It's like even someone who grew up around photography, like me myself, when being photographed, I don't know what to do, like with my hands or just how to feel, or it's just like the whole thing is weird. So if you start from that place and then like work your way backwards from it, it's really easy to connect with someone and just explain what you're doing and what the point of all of this is, like what's the greater goal.
Mm.
So like for the Ethiopia book, anyone who's like part of the book knows like what the end result is and why it's important. So you get kind of co-collaborators that work with you to achieve that goal. And it doesn't mean like you have to hide the fact that you're a photographer and like first get to know someone over many years. Like, yes, you could do that. I have done that. That's important. But also just like putting it out there, like, this is why I'm here. This is what I'm doing. This is like what I hope to achieve. But also to explain to somebody, like, hey, I have this vision of a book that includes like all of these kind of people. This is how it's going to look. Like, this is what I want to do. This is why I'm spending so much time doing this, so many resources doing this. This is why it's like odd if we spend so much time trying to create one picture. Like that's why, right? And that kind of message, I think, resonates in any country. Especially it resonates in a country where photography might be viewed as kind of conspiratorial. So I think if you come at it from that perspective and you have like nothing to hide and you explain things, people are like usually really honored to even be part of anything, right? Like if someone came to me and I didn't know anything about photography and they just explained like, oh, this is like what I do, this is my project, can I include you in it? I'd be like, yes, right? And that's with or without a knowledge of what's good photography or what's bad photography, I'd probably agree to it. So back to your question about today's, modern age, to me, none of that stuff like really matters. I think that social media and digital photography is amazing because it gave so many new artists a chance, and what we're seeing is kind of the destruction of the old way of photography, which could be described as a kind of a gilded age of photography that had a lot of gatekeepers. And you like to do advertising, you had to like have your photo published in a magazine but with your name beside it, because that's the only way someone's going to know your name is seeing it in a printed magazine with your name there. And if they messed up your name, that's so bad. Right? Nowadays that kind of doesn't matter. So yes, it did open the floodgates and it did devalue photography as a whole, but what will ultimately come from that, I think, are creative works and creative voices that we can't even think of yet because it's only been maybe a decade or two
Hmm.
of this kind of thing. But you have to imagine, where all of this is going in the future. And we're all of my favorite, like modern favorite photographers are playing with these things and are starting with these things. And they weren't available to us in the past. Even arguably, these digital tools were around when I first started as a photographer as well. Like some of my first work working for musicians was from MySpace, right? Like doing artists promotions for their MySpace
Mm-hmm.
page. So that gave me a huge chance, right? MySpace gave me a platform and a way to do business when I was 15, 16 years old. So for me to sit here now and say like, oh, I think Instagram photography is bad. Well, like, what about MySpace photography? It was really bad, right? But here we are. Do you know how many grunge filters I use? Like, a lot, a lot. So it's just like you got to put things into perspective and kind of zoom out. I'm annoyed by Instagram personally. I can't I can't look at it. It's hard for me to open it and engage with it, but I do see the power of it, you know.
What is it about Twitter that pulls you in so vehemently?
Twitter is where all the psychos are.
It's a crazy maze of.
Well, there was a moment when all the photographers were on Twitter. It was around 2009, 2010. I can't remember when Instagram got popular, but it was probably when all the photographers left Twitter. It was
Yeah.
like 2011.
Yeah.
And all the crazy people just stayed behind on Twitter who were interested in things beyond visuals. I'm not saying that Instagram photographers are not interested in anything, but the platform inspires a lot of chaos and also an interest in, I guess, world events or news and things like that, which Instagram does not have. So there was a moment a few years ago where photographers did come back to Twitter. I think it was when they allowed high resolution images and the embedded posts, like they looked really nice, but then they kind of went away again. So I don't know. I find myself it's a lot easier to post on Twitter.
And I think the NFT rush kind of played into that as well, didn't it? People
The
were
yeah,
rushing over there to make money, essentially.
yes, to tap into this new gold mine of liquidity. Crypto Twitter is a thing where crypto people only use Twitter, and it's not really on Instagram at all. That's certainly been the case since 2021, I suppose. It was used for that as well, yes.
Yeah.
But that's not why I like it more.
You just like
It
the
is
mayhem.
it is a part of it, but like I've been on it for longer than that.
Seems like
Yeah.
community is probably the most powerful on Twitter. I think certainly my experience, the likes of Instagram is there's definitely a community aspect, but it's kind of fake and it's people use it for other means, and you don't have the kind of visceral interaction that I think you do on Twitter.
So you like Twitter too?
I do. Well, actually, I don't like any social media platform, but I dislike some more than others. But I totally understand. I understand what they're used for and the utility of them.
Right.
But I generally don't like what social media has done to society in whole.
Yeah, but what are we supposed to do though?
Oh,
Like,
no.
what would you?
I'm not saying we should do anything.
Right. Okay. Let me ask you this: if you could invent any app that works, how would it work for just for photography? Because I don't know if you know this, but actually before Instagram, do you know who thought of Instagram first? It was actually Chase Jarvis. He
Oh,
came out,
really?
yeah, he came out with an app called Best Camera or Best Photo
Okay.
or something, and it was kind of Instagram, honestly. Someone stole his idea, or it was so obvious that multiple people thought of it at the same time, like the creation of the wheel. Right. But his app, what he did was allow iPhone photography to have filters on it, and there was a shareable component to it, and it was very pure, um, like early Instagram was. And I'm waiting for somebody to save photography with a great app. Maybe there could be a crypto component where there's a native currency where likes equal that currency, kind of like but that's not going to work because those curves are going to be all messed up eventually. But something like that could really save photography, if there could be a system which valued striking work and it didn't devolve into what other people are looking at on social media, right? So like you've seen those tweets where it's someone posting like, "Oh my God, I looked at TikTok and it's all just a bunch of naked women. Like, what's going on?" It's because the algorithm was like trained by,
Of
by
course.
what that person was
Of
like
course.
spending time on and swiping on. Like, I can't believe it. If there could be an app that doesn't devolve into that, but that evolves into kind of very moving, meaningful photography, that could be the thing that saves photography, because it could replace every kind of printed magazine, whatever is still remaining in the dustbin of history. But it could save all of this. Personally, I haven't figured it out, or else I would make it. So I'm stuck on Twitter. But I think there's a way to do it. There's definitely a way to do it. It would just be finding a way for an algorithm to value the right kind of imagery. And when I say right, there's obviously no right or wrong kind of imagery, but just to find things that are moving. So for example, my friend Sam Spratt, he's an illustrator. He just released a painting called The Monument Game.
Sorry, yeah. Amazing.
And he inspired people to leave annotations on top of his painting to kind of compete against one another. But what it did was it made people really engage in his work and spend hours looking at this painting, which is very complicated, full of little tableaus and things. And if you've ever been to an exhibition, what most people do is they turn their backs to the art, they have a drink in their hand, and it's just a social club that's surrounded by art. But what he did was make everyone turn and look at the artwork, basically, with that project. So I love that as a reference for a photography app that could work, is he gave people a way to meaningfully engage with his work that compelled people to kind of give a piece of themselves and pull something out of themselves. And he's a painter. Like we could definitely do that, because we're photographing things that are real and around the world that people are interested in. So if he could do it, I think we could also do it.
Let's do it. Sign up.
All right, delete this podcast.
Yeah. Secret.
Yeah. Okay, I thought of it. No. But please, if someone's out there and wants to save photography, that would be amazing.
So